Are you struggling with a short growing season? In this video, I'm going to show you how to use floating row covers to extend the season either into the fall or to be able to start earlier in the spring. Hi, it's Mark from Healthy Fresh Homegrown, where I help you live a healthier, thriving lifestyle by growing food at home. If you're new here, welcome. As with all my videos, check the video description below for useful links and other information to help you grow food at home. Let's grow. So extending the growing season is excellent if you have limited space or you simply want to enjoy the homegrown food for a larger part of the year. So using floating row cover is one way to extend the season and allow fall crops to be available for you to harvest longer, but also allow you to start earlier in spring so that you can enjoy the first tasty lettuces or other greens before you normally would be able to in your climate. And make sure to stick around till the end of the video, where I'll also explain to you a bonus tip of how to use the floating row cover in another way to protect your crops beyond just frost protection. So right now, let's have a look at what is needed to set up row covers. So first off, you'll need a few supplies. I've left a link to my kit.co kit in the description below so that if you have problems finding these items locally or prefer to shop online, I've provided a convenient guide for you to follow. So first up is row cover, and this is what it looks like. It comes in a roll, and there are various lengths and widths that you can get, but more importantly is the actual weight of the row cover. Now this one is a fairly light cover. We're here on the west coast of Canada where the winters don't get very cold, but you can get light, medium, and heavyweight row covers, and it'll depend on, of course, your region and how cold it actually gets and how much frost protection you need. So as you go with heavier covers, keep in mind that they will block more of the light. So the lightest covers will let in the most amount of light, and then the heavier ones will let in very little light. So you may find that on a sunny day when it's warmed up enough, you might have to actually remove the cover just to give your plants a bit of light. And in terms of size, for a typical 4x8 foot bed, you would ideally need about a 5 to 7 foot wide cover. And then for the length, you're looking at probably around 12 feet, just so that you have enough excess to close up the ends of the row cover. And the one that I have here is actually a 6 foot size. When I was shopping yesterday for the row cover, I actually noticed that they had 3 foot widths as well, and I think those are mainly for very small row covers that actually just cover one row of plants, whereas I prefer to cover the whole bed if I can. So the second thing that you need is some kind of hoops to actually support the row cover off the ground and off your plants. So I prefer to use these metal ones. They're basically just a thick gauge metal that is fairly easy to bend, and they can be bent to shape and then just inserted into the ground about 3 or 4 inches. Alternatively, you can also use rebar and some kind of thin pipe that is easy to bend, a 1/2 inch sprinkler pipe, but you could also use the white irrigation pipe. And then what you would do is insert the rebar into the ground and insert the pipe over it, and you do that on both ends, of course. So the hoops that you use for a 4x8 foot bed, so to cover the 4 foot width of the bed, should be about 6 feet long, and that's to make sure that you're able to bend the hoop and then also insert it into the ground far enough. You'll of course need longer hoops if you have taller plants. The other alternative is you can actually create a wooden frame over your beds and then cover that with the lightweight row cover. The row cover can then just be stapled on, and when you don't need the covers anymore, you can just remove the frame and store it somewhere off to the side. And finally, you'll need some way to actually secure the row cover to whatever you're using for supports, either the metal hoops like I showed you or the sprinkler pipe. So what I prefer to use are actually just ordinary wooden clothespins. You could use plastic ones too. They're good and sturdy, they last a long time, and they have a fairly good spring action to keep the row cover on, especially during windy periods. So the other option you have is things such as maybe binder clips, although those could rust. And then you can also consider using something like the chip clips that you would use to secure a bag of chips. And for a 4x8 foot bed, have at least a couple of dozen clips handy. The more the better to keep the row cover secure. And if you're using the irrigation pipe, what you can do is split down a piece of the pipe, and then that can kind of clip on. So you'd put the cover on top, and then you'd clip this on top of the cover, and that'll hold it on fairly securely. They sometimes can be a little bit of pain to put on. There we go, like that. All right. And then for the bottom of the cover, as you'll see, what I tend to use is I tend to either use some pavers or bricks or stones that I find around the garden, or you can also use pieces of lumber as well to secure the edges of the cover. So before I show you how to actually put the covers on, let me know down in the comments below if you've ever actually lost plants to either an early frost or to a late frost in the spring. So to set these up, I've got my bed here of turnips. These probably don't need frost protection right now, but I'll just show you with this bed as a demonstration. First is to set up the hoops. With these metal ones, it's simply a matter of bending them a bit, pushing them into the soil at least 3 to 4 inches, or about 7 to 10 centimeters. I usually try to space them about a foot apart, but of course you need ones on the ends, so for this bed that's 4 hoops. I'm doing it perpendicular to the length of the bed, but of course you could do it parallel as well, as you can see in this photo. So once the hoops are in place, it's time to put on the row cover. If you need to cut it, wait until you have it in place so you don't cut it too small. And it's always a good idea to have a bit of extra on the sides and ends. It's easy to cut just with a pair of kitchen scissors. And don't do this on a windy day unless you have help. Stretch the row cover over the hoops, unfold it if you need to, leaving enough on the ends to cover the vertical ends. Clip it as you go. You can always reposition clips as needed. So I'm clipping at the top of the hoop and the 2 ends of the hoop, and then of course on the end hoop as well. And you can do the intermediate ones, but you don't need to unless you have a really long cover. You'll just have to see how it behaves on a windy day. And as you can see, there is a little bit of a breeze already. They're right there, so it's important to secure it right away. So on the ends, what you do is you just kind of fold it up and put some heavy, in this case bricks, on the ends. And then on the sides, I'm just using some scrap pieces of lumber. You could also use soil actually and just pile it against the cloth. Keep in mind any loose parts of the cover could result in wind getting underneath and ripping the cover. So in terms of timing, add row covers in fall before your first frost. Add them in spring before you plant any early crops before your last frost date. Before I cover a bonus way that row covers are beneficial, I'm pleased to announce a new membership option in my membership seed to table called the Membership Sampler. This completely free membership gives you access to 3 pieces of content so that you can get a taste of what seed to table offers. Register for free by clicking on the link in the description below. Floating row covers are great to protect against the cold. However, there's one more benefit that they have that actually is almost as important. So they can also be used actually to protect crops from flying pests such as the flies that lay eggs for the root maggot. And As an example, the turnips here, I didn't put the row cover on when I planted them in late summer, and I did get a bit of damage on the actual turnips themselves in terms of a bit of root maggot damage. Not terrible, but still a little bit of damage that we have to cut off when we eat them. Now in spring, on the other hand, this past spring, I actually planted turnips in a different bed, and I put row cover on immediately after I seeded them and left the row cover on until harvest time, and I had almost no damage. So if you're getting pest damage, especially on brassicas and some of the root crops, putting row cover on, especially just after transplanting or just after direct seeding, will definitely help to keep the flying pests off. And of course, the key if you're using it for pest protection is to make sure there's absolutely no holes where the flies can actually get in. So be sure to secure the edges where it touches the soil as best as you can. And if you're using it for pest protection and you don't need to worry about frost protection, especially in spring, then you can just use the lightest weight of row cover like I have done here. So as you can see, using floating row cover has the benefit of allowing you to extend your growing season, but it also allows for pest protection as well. And it's quite easy to set up, providing you have the right supplies. And just a reminder that I've left a link to my kit.co kit that contains all of the supplies that you need to install floating row covers in case you can't find them locally, or if you prefer to shop online and just have everything shipped to your house. So if you have any questions about using floating row covers, be sure to comment down below, and also check out this video that I took about protecting container herb plants by reusing single-use plastic containers. Thanks for watching, and I wish you all the best with extending the growing season.